1800s sailed to the Americas, he tried to understand how things are related. So he looked at humidity, at temperature, at altitude, at types of vegetation that could grow, and he was really the founder of biospheric ecology. And I think we need that knowledge again. We need to go to our cities with the same attitude, trying to understand how a building changes the wind, how a plaza changes permeability, and actually go into the city as if it was a second nature, as if you go there for the first time and you try to understand how it works. And we need that because our climate is changing, as you all know. And I just show you here the IPCC's latest drawing that was published about a year ago on the 21st of March. And we are going into some strange, unpredictable, difficult and dangerous climate. So we need to create a new science. I've called it biospheric urbanism. There's other names for it. But we need this new science to be able to change our cities rapidly. And we've been trying to work on that in many countries. We've been lucky to have been asked in many sites, and every site, every project becomes part of a laboratory, a part of understanding what can be done. So this is my introduction, and then I will show you 3 projects briefly to discuss this issue.
Molto velocemente, Bas ci presenterà oggi 3 progetti. La prima slide che avete visto è un disegno di Alexander von Humboldt che ha fatto una volta arrivato in America, in cui diciamo era arrivato il nuovo continente e ha cercato di capirlo da un punto di vista biosferico, quindi umidità, vegetazione, temperatura, un qualcosa che può essere sintetizzato con diciamo, la frase ecologia biosferica, ed è un qualcosa che forse ancora oggi verso cui dovremmo diciamo, avere una maggiore consapevolezza. Perché? Molto semplicemente perché il clima sta cambiando, il clima sta diventando anche qualcosa di più pericoloso in alcuni contesti, e quindi c'è bisogno di una nuova scienza o di riscoprire certe scienze affinché la città possa cambiare ed adattarsi in fretta. Quindi ogni progetto è affrontato dal bureau di Bas come una sorta di laboratorio che cerca di far fronte a queste esigenze.
First project in Paris, in La Défense. Probably one of the most artificial environments you can find. We are on a floating esplanade underneath which there is RER, there is metro, there is railway stations, there is parking, there is underground services. And in this urban jungle, if you like, a smart developer found a way of inserting 1,000 micro foundations around this urban boulevard, on which he built a floating platform, on which he built a skyscraper. And he asked me to design that strange bridge-like structure, if you like, that connects the esplanade of La Défense with the city level 12 meters below. And I was thinking, what kind of space do I make there? What can it be? And I remember he told me, like, Bas, there's only one rule: you have to plant 9 trees. Because he had made a deal with the mayor, 9 trees, not less. I was like, okay, 9 trees. And I thought, what does this remind me of? There is wind everywhere, because these skyscrapers, of course, create wind. There is reflection everywhere, because you have all this glass. There's these changes in level, and I thought, actually, it looks very much like the Alps. The glaciers are the windows, of course. Everything is in stone, and there's high differences everywhere. And I thought, and I like to go walk in the mountains. I come from a flat country, from Belgium, so I love the mountains. And when you walk in the mountains, there's a huge difference between being below the tree canopy and stepping out of it. It's a whole different microclimate, if you like. You're protected from the sun, you're protected from the wind, or you are alone with the elements. And I thought what's missing in La Défense is this tree canopy, the tree line, the line that decides when you're out of it and when you're in it. And so we thought, can we rethink La Défense as a kind of mountain landscape? And so we decided to put everything in stone, the railings, the stairs, the hardscape, only one material, just like in the mountains. And then we thought, can we plant this tree line? Can we make this continuous canopy? And what we did is we did a reading of the existing as if it was a natural environment, except that here we're looking at all the obstacles. For example, I cannot plant on the beams, I cannot plant on the fire truck lane, I cannot plant on the lane for the accessibility, wheelchairs. And so we made this map of non-plantable zones and planted everywhere else. Just like nature would do, in a very pragmatic and opportunistic way. And we use a computer program to see where to plant these trees. And then we had a big discussion with the structural engineer, because of course he wanted the least load possible, we wanted the most earth possible. And after 2 years of negotiations, we ended up with 50 centimeters of earth, but everywhere. So I had 4,000 square meters times 50 centimeters. I had 2,000 cubic meters of earth. And in the end, what counts is volume, not depth. And so we prepared those trees in the nursery. You can see the scale of it. We prepared them to have flat roots. And here you see the system, continuous soil. And on these slabs, we put our concrete stones, open joints, so all the rainwater goes to the space below, and the trees can grow in those 2,000 cubic meters of soil. And you can see those trees now are big, they're 12 meters, 13 meters. Precise choice of tree that can live in these conditions. It's Alnus glutinosa. And so now you see the shade, the birds come back, people eat their sandwiches there, and suddenly life attracts life again. Good luck.
Thank you. No, molto sinteticamente, perché mi sembra capire che anche dalle risate tutti capiscono tutto. E il primo progetto è a Parigi, alla Défense, che è una zona estremamente artificiale, tantissimo asfalto, ma anche una zona particolarmente complessa nella sua stratigrafia, perché al di sotto della Défense, che è la versione francese del nostro euro in un certo senso, dove ci sono molti uffici, e al di sotto ci sta la RER, che sarebbe diverse tipologie di metropolitane, alcune più legate alla città e altre invece che connettono Parigi ai dintorni più lontani. E un developer particolarmente ingegnoso era riuscito a trovare uno stratagemma per costruire uno skyscraper, un grattacielo, e ha affidato a Bas e ai suoi collaboratori anche perché così era l'accordo con il sindaco o la sindaca, di creare un paesaggio, di riuscire a creare un ecosistema urbano all'interno di questo paesaggio artificiale. Quindi l'ispirazione è stato l'ambiente delle Alpi, quindi questo paesaggio molto minerale, di pietra, in cui puntualmente ci stanno questi grandi alberi, ed è stato particolarmente challenging, una sfida, perché ovviamente essendo un palinsesto di infrastrutture riuscire a piantare degli alberi è molto complicato. Quindi ha mostrato diversi diagrammi di mobilità, di fondazioni e così via. È stato anche un braccio di ferro con gli ingegneri, e alla fine la strategia è stata quella di fare un filare molto, uno spessore particolarmente sottile di terra, però dappertutto, in cui puntualmente sono stati inseriti questi alberi, così da riattivare un microclima.
I have one more, I think. So here you see how this tree line is developing. And again, everything. The most important.
You can use mine.
Fine, it's fine. Thanks. So here you see the trees developing into one canopy, and since they have so much soil, they keep on growing and growing. A tree takes 1 cubic meter per year, and a tree is like a bonsai. If it doesn't have space anymore, it stops, or it tries to push up the pavement. If it has space, it grows and it grows. From this, I go to another exercise in bringing vegetation back to a sterile site. And mostly we're asked to work with difficult sites, and that's what we do. And here we're in Arles, in the south of France, next to Marseille. And you can see it, I don't have a pointer, but you can see this on the bottom right. A platform made by man, carved out of the bedrock, which means there was no soil, no water, only rocks and a little layer of concrete to use it as an industrial site. the industrial activity stopped in the 80s. So when I started working on it about 30 years ago, and in that time, nothing grew. And this, a bit like what you have in Rome sometimes, this was a oven in summer, because the concrete would absorb the solar heat, 18 hours of sun per day, and you would walk on a hot plate, and the perceived temperature, the temperature that your body feels, was about 50, 55 degrees, extremely hot. You would walk from one venue to another, because this is used for the rencontre de la photographie, and you would have a headache after 5 minutes. And so when Maya Hoffman, the president of the Luma Foundation, asked me to make a park here, I thought, we first need to change the microclimate before we can make a park. How can we change the microclimate? And so we looked at the big sites around Arles, and Arles is lying next to the Rhone, and if you remember from your history classes, when the ice receded after the ice age, life came back to the continent through the Rhone, following the Rhone. And so, very interestingly, around Arles you have the Alpi, which is the southern branch of the Alps. You have the Crau, which is the floodbed of a glacier. And then you have the Camargue, which is the estuary plain of the Rhone. And these three landscapes show you all the strategies plants have developed over years, over the millions of years. And so we thought, from the stony Alpi to the windswept Camargue to the watery Crau, we have a multitude of strategies, plant logics that we can use to bring plant life back to this sterile site. And so we studied the wind, and we imagined, what would nature do over 100 years, 200 years, 300 years, 400 years? How would climax come back to the site? And we thought the wind would create topography, bringing sediments. Topography creates environments. Environments allows different types of plants to grow. So we created a topography that is windswept, and that creates an asymmetrical climatic condition. In the summer, you can lie in the shade of the trees, benefiting from the wind, while in the winter, you can walk in the sun, shaded or protected from the wind through that hill and those plants. And this works extremely well on site. I'll show you. And we use it on that 60,000 square meter land. And then, since we could not dig, and we added the soil, we thought that with each incremental height of the soil, we go to a next ecological succession. As you know, first you have the pioneer plants, then come then so you have all this succession until the climax plants, which means that if you're in about 2 meters of soil, you go to the pine tree that you see here, but you're 200 years further. And so when you walk on the site and you walk next to a hill, you don't go back to the past, but you go faster into the future. We worked with Transolar on the perceived temperature, which is measured in Universal Thermal Climate Index. And so, for example, they measured how much we had here, about 50, 55 degrees. And here you can see it's a climate machine. The evaporation cools down the temperature. The plants cool down the temperature. The grass cools down the temperature. And so from a 13% comfortable time measured by Transolar before the project, we go to 65. And if there's a bit of wind, 77%. So it's really a climatic machine, this park, that we are following very closely. We're monitoring it. Per 10 trees, we have a witness tree, and that witness tree has 3 tensiometers, so we can see how much water it's using and where it's using the water. We know where the roots are in the park, and we use that for a better irrigation. And so now we see 80,000 plants planted on this concrete slab, producing a climate, allowing animals to come back, and we monitor animal life in the pond, in the earth, and in the air. Many people coming back, but only 1/8 of the site is for people, and where we make lawns, all the rest is really for nature coming back on the site. So here you see perfectly the section. People are sitting in the shade of those trees facing north. And here you see a picture taken this summer, 2 years after installation. Again, everything you see has been planted, and you see that it's It's becoming almost like a self-organizing system. And so again, from the concrete platform to the accelerated process of what nature would have done, and that we've calculating now the number of birds, not that come back because they weren't there, but are coming to the site. And in 2 years' time, we have noticed 37 new species coming to the site. Based on the species, we put birds' nests, so we push the hotspot as far as we can.
Allora, ancora molto sinteticamente, il sito è un sito ad Arles, nel sud della Francia, circa 60.000 metri quadrati, un sito particolarmente difficile, in quanto era un ex sito industriale in cui per moltissimi anni era praticamente soltanto pietra, non c'era neanche della terra, tantissimo cemento, quindi uno può immaginarsi che d'estate diveniva una sorta di isola di calore con temperature altissime. E la strategia è stata quella di ricreare un nuovo microclima, ovviamente, altrimenti nulla sarebbe sopravvissuto, e l'ispirazione, diciamo, proveniva dal contesto stesso, dalla storia geologica e naturale del contesto attorno ad Arles, e diciamo, studiando questa storia sono state attuate una serie di strategie complesse per riportare appunto la natura in questo sito, che hanno in un certo senso enfatizzato e accelerato quello che sarebbe accaduto in maniera naturale nel corso degli anni, delle decine degli anni. Quindi è stata riportata l'acqua, sono state create delle topografie all'interno del quale sono stati piantati diversi tipi di vegetazione che rispondevano alla posizione del sole a seconda che sia inverno o estate. Bas ha usato questa espressione interessante, una macchina climatica, parlando anche della collaborazione con Transolar, che sono degli ingegneri climatici, in cui effettivamente l'apporto di questo intervento è stato scientificamente provato, quindi come la temperatura sia migliorata, è stato studiata addirittura che tipo di irrigazione fare a seconda della vegetazione, a seconda della posizione all'interno del sito, ed è diventato in tutto e per tutto un nuovo microclima. Banel ha parlato di 37 nuove specie di animali, aria, acqua e terra che si sono insediati, e di questo nuovo paesaggio soltanto un ottavo è per l'uomo, tra virgolette, gli altri 7 ottavi sono per gli animali, la vegetazione e così via.
I have time for one more? Yeah. Yes? I just came back this morning from Bahrain, an island lying in the Gulf, and we've worked for 10 years on the historic city of Muharraq, which you see here, which had an incredible quality, almost Venice-like. Warehouses, half in the water, half on the peninsula. Boats would leave to get oysters. They would be opened to find pearls. Bahrain was one of the capitals of pearling, and it still is. Now this is an amazing image, but today they built a ring road around it in the 60s, and so the city lost its connection with the water. The ring road is dangerous, you cannot even cross it. And so, voilà, first observation, from this amazing situation, suddenly it becomes a kind of a cramped Medina enclosed by that infrastructure. Secondly, there are still many buildings linked to pearling, and the Ministry of Culture had enlisted 17 buildings on the UNESCO World Heritage List, among them this Seyadi complex, and did a competition to create what they call the Pearling Path, connecting those 17 buildings. And I responded to this competition together with Office Kersten Geers, David van Zeveren. And instead of making this connection, we were wandering around, and we thought all the public space is parking. Every time there's an opportunity to park, people park. The paths themselves are quite small. Here you see one of the houses not yet renovated, parking next to it. And when we saw this open space, we thought, can we not find a way of not just making a path, but actually making climatic plazas in the city center of Muharraq? And we thought every time a building had collapsed, instead of rebuilding it, can we use it as an opportunity to make public space? And can we connect those public spaces by kind of a sign, and that sign will be the lamppost. So I just came back from the Alps again, and I love how you would walk following these little heaps of stones, like a path made with material from the side. We thought the material from the side in an urban context is lamppost. So lampposts bring you from one plaza to another. And here you see the original contour of the peninsula, the new contour of the reclaimed land, and the kind of inner landscape that we propose. So to compensate for the loss of the connection with the water, we make a connection of 16 connected plazas. And these plazas, we imagine them climatic by creating a tree canopy, evapotranspiration, being in the shade, having a bench, having a water element, and based on context, elements for kids to play, elements for people to sit. And here you see the images we made, I think, about 10 years ago. And so here you see, for example, the building had collapsed. And so we discussed many times with the Minister of Culture. We used the trees to rebuild the volume of the building that had been gone, but to create this kind of outdoor room. You have a ceiling, but it's a ceiling of leaves, and you can sit and enjoy that space. And so we made a whole series of them, as you can see. And this was the building we just saw a couple of slides ago with the cars parked next to it. And so the trees are growing. They're growing fast. They, again, have a lot of soil underneath this carpet. The concrete, together with office, we put mother of pearl in the concrete, so referring to the pearling. And here you see how it produces shade. People sit there, and people use it in a very informal way. Here with some playing elements. This was at night. This was taken yesterday night. It's a shiny concrete, so you get the kind of double reflection of the light. And here you see how in the kind of fabric of the Medina, suddenly you have these moments of peace and these moments of freshness. Even the light, we made a cold light in contrast with all the hot lights in Muharraq.
Ancora una volta in estrema sintesi, il terzo progetto è a Bahrain, fatto insieme a Office, Kerstin Geers, David Nevatseveren, di cui tra l'altro Kerstin Geers sarà nostro ospite domani a 12:15. È lo stato di fatto era quello di una capitale, di una bellissima città che aveva perso tuttavia la relazione molto forte che aveva storicamente con l'acqua per via di quella costruzione di una sorta di GRA, potremmo dire, di questa grande strada tutta attorno, e questo è stato un elemento importante, la perdita, far fronte a questa perdita, ed è poi tra l'altro caratterizzata da questi bellissimi edifici storici che erano presenti un po' dappertutto nella città, e l'idea è stata quella di creare una serie di far fronte a questa perdita di connessione con l'acqua attraverso la creazione in ogni momento in cui un edificio era fatiscente o era crollato, anziché ricostruire un edificio, ma creare questi spazi pubblici che molto spesso appunto prendevano spazio o di edifici fatiscenti o di spazi pubblici in cui semplicemente erano dei posti di parcheggio. Quindi spazi pubblici in cui ci sta una seduta, in cui si ricrea ancora una volta un microclima riportando l'acqua, creando queste stanze vegetali con questi alberi, l'illuminazione, e riattivando dal punto di vista microclimatico un po' tutta la città, perché mi sembra che gli interventi siano oltre 16 piazze.
And to end, I just want to show you some slides without much explication of what we do at Harvard. So every year we take one city and we collaborate with that city to do a microclimatic reading of the city. So we try to look at heat islands, we look at air pollution, we look at wind, we look at flooding risks, and we try to come up with a new image of that city. And then with the students we try to come up with very pragmatic proposals that we say to the city, here is your problem, you should do this, here you should do this. And so we work with cities that want to work with us. We give the result of the students to the city, and we try to build up a kind of knowledge working on different cities. So we worked on New York 2 years ago. Last year we worked on Paris. I'll just flip you through them, but I'll give you one idea. For example, you know Montmartre, which is right here. That's a hill. All the runoff, all the rainwater flows towards the Seine, but is captured and taken off. If you look at the boulevards that Haussmann made, you could perfectly use that boulevard to capture that rainwater in a kind of an open, linear catchment basin, put trees in there, bring that water back into the atmosphere. Think of the city as a kind of a air conditioning system, territorial air conditioning system. Les Invalides with trees, Pantheon with new trees, even the Place Vendôme as a kind of protected landscape, and we imagine it +3 degrees, +4 degrees, +5 degrees. And so we're trying to build up a new kind of science, if you like, where we mix climate engineering, landscape architecture, architecture, infrastructure, and to really rethink our cities as a way to make them resilient to all the changes that are coming to us. Thank you.
Abbiamo ancora pochi minuti, forse Stefano, se hai qualche considerazione, e poi magari prendiamo una domanda dal pubblico.
Yeah, but just so it's fantastic, amazing. We're really impressed by what you were showing us. Well, I was, let's say, thinking to how Gilles Clément was important for all of us. I think it's something that we should never forget, because his concept of third landscape, the idea that in any case living nature is coming back, it's capable to bring back artificial space everywhere, in every climate condition. It's so, let's say, invisible. And so from a certain point of view, what I really think is super interesting in your works is this delicate balance between artificial dimension and, let's say, and living nature. And that's what we have to, you are just, I think you're totally right, we have to work in direction of creating a relation between botany and urbanism, or if you want, the biosphere, ecological urbanism. And the point, this delicate balance, it's about how we are available to accept that when nature comes back, it comes as, let's say, something that we cannot completely control. So there is something of completely unpredictable about the natural sphere when it comes back. And this is not always acceptable for us and for what we are used to consider a culture, or ecological culture, or in the public opinion. So that's simply a comment, but I often go back to a dialogue who took place in Eindhoven in 1972 between Noam Chomsky and Michel Foucault about the concept of living nature and human nature, where Chomsky was, doing that, about, let's say, trying to underline the power of reason, and also when we talk about human nature. And Foucault was saying, no, absolutely no. Human nature is madness, and it's like an immersion from inside. It's not something that you can control. So when you consider the natural sphere, you have always to consider its unpredictability, and that's, I think, is something which is very important. What I've seen in, for instance, in Arles, where you are creating the condition for nature to come back, not designing every detail, not every part. And at the same time, creating the condition for the human behavior to be limited, to circumscribe. We are not circumscribing nature, we are circumscribing our movements. So that's just to say that I think, well, just to go back to something, because Enrico Leva, he's an ethologist, and he was here just half an hour ago. And well, Roma, it's the largest agricultural municipality in Europe. Basically, It has 50,000 hectares of cultivated areas, out of a total of 85,000 hectares of green areas. So almost 70% of the municipal territory. And here, and what was Enrico saying, 40 species of mammals, 16 species of reptiles, 10 species of amphibians, 5,200 species of insects, and 121 species of volatiles, of birds, are cohabiting. No? So this is the place where to try to experiment this combination of botany, ethology, and urbanism. So thanks.
No, thank you for that comment. And what I try to do, because I mean we're in difficult times, and many people are getting also anxious, eco-anxious, and we try with the projects to show an example of what can be done. Because if you think of it, a city, it's actually an interesting place. It's a perfect place to capture rainwater, because all the roofs capture rainwater, all the roads capture rainwater, except that we've designed everything to throw that rainwater as quickly away as possible, creating floodings downhill. So we have to rethink the city as a catchment basin, and it's all there. Find places to have that water go into the ground, and then use vegetation to bring that water back into the atmosphere. So we have to think of the city as a cycle, as a machine, and not a machine for infrastructure, but a machine to produce microclimates. And I think it's a whole new way of looking at things, and it's indeed inspired by what Clément would do on the Botanica level, but it's also inspired by von Humboldt in the idea that we can make soils. We can, a city basically, as you know, we cut down the forest, made a city, pushed out vegetation, and then brought in the ones we liked, right? So most of it was kept out, even if you think of the word environment as if it is something that is around us. I mean, the environment is who we are. So the idea is to really rethink that artificial environment that we have created for ourselves, and to see with what it corresponds in the natural world, and then bringing those logics back into the artificial world, which will give us a whole new aesthetic in a sense. And because it's not about composition, it's about designing the process, and the process produces a composition or produces effects. And so it's about letting go and still knowing where we have to have, so where are we in control, where are we not in control, and it becomes a kind of play where we don't really know where we're ending up. And so you need clients that accept that. You need, so it's a whole new way of looking at it, and it's not at all like this is what you paid for and this is what we will build. No, it's about we start things together and we'll see where we go. But we need that kind of experimental attitude, because we need a new way of bringing nature, ecology, botanism back into the artificial environment.
Sì, farò uno sforzo titanico di sintesi in 15 secondi. Stefano ha iniziato puntualizzando l'importanza della lezione di Gilles Clément, lo scrittore del manifesto del terzo paesaggio. Ha citato il famoso dibattito Chomsky-Foucault, in cui il primo portava avanti questa, visione molto modernista della realtà, del raziocinio che predomina un po' sul mondo altro, mentre Foucault parlava un po' della ragione dell'uomo, con che puntualizzava come avesse un fondo di follia. E quindi quale luogo meglio di Roma per analizzare questo rapporto tra natura, geologia, animali e così via. E Bas ha puntualizzato come in effetti le città sono spesso state costruite cercando anche un po' di portare fuori la complessità del mondo naturale, e forse oggi dovremmo chiederci se veramente questa è la migliore direzione verso cui andare, o se dovremmo ripensare questo rapporto. Siamo un po' indietro siamo un po' andati un po', come si dice a Roma, un po' lunghi, quindi forse direi che possiamo, una domanda, se c'è una domanda dal pubblico, una velocissima, e poi lasciamo spazio a Luca Lopinto in conversazione con Luca Galofaro.
Thank you, Bas. We all know you're active in Rome, working on the Maxi project, which is a specific reaction to a very specific condition in that square. where you have to recreate a microclimate, removing all the amount of concrete that there is. So what I'd like to ask you is, let's say next year at Harvard you choose Rome, and what would be your strategic vision, or what would you focus your work on in such a city? You know, I don't know how familiar you are with the city beyond your involvement with this project, but we all know Rome is a huge green lung at a European level. It's one of the greenest cities. So it's somehow you feel that this greenery, that the vegetation in Rome has to be controlled in a way. It's the opposite somehow of some of the things you showed. So I would be interested in knowing if you ever thought about it and what your focus would be within this strategic framework in academia, let's say.
I have thought about it, and we are now looking at the cities for the next 3-4 years. And for me, the most important element of the choice is a city needs to want to work with us, because I don't want to come in as a kind of a intellectual force, and you know, so it needs to be a collaboration. So that's for us important, that the city invites us, we work with them, we work in Harvard, and we come back to them. Now, as for Rome, I haven't studied it yet, except for the Maxi side, of course, I don't know well. And the Maxi side is of course very interesting, because it's the same, it's very similar to Arle. It's all concrete. There's a couple of poplar trees that have a hard time surviving, and in summer it's so hot. I mean, I remember 40 degrees, and then you go inside, bang, you get the air conditioning. So at the Maxi, what we're trying to do is indeed create a microclimate, looking at how to deal with the existing concrete. There's also below ground structures. What kind of trees do you plant? So again, the kind of a similar research in how to produce a microclimate, and we can produce microclimates. That's our only hope. Produce planetary microclimates to make those cities livable. So I cannot answer directly to your question what I would do with Rome, but of course, I mean, the history of Rome, the 7 hills, the Tiber. There's so many things that you already can start thinking about: water, about vegetation, and especially how to. We once worked in Bordeaux, a bit similar, where the city center is very mineral, like here, and we worked on the wind coming from the ocean, and we understood that we could canalize the wind in the summer to bring it to the city center, again as a kind of territorial air conditioner. And maybe in Rome there's something to do with that, but I haven't studied it at a territorial scale. But maybe Rome could be a city.
Thank you very much.